Monday, November 7th, 2022, meeting of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the pledge to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First this evening, I would like to invite Mrs. Erin Goodhart-Kurtz, our Director of Aquatics, along with, for the first time since 2001, both the girls and boys water polo teams as state champions. They're coming. Guys, come on. At the 2022 Wilson Boys and Girls State Water Polo Champions. We want to recognize both teams for their hard-fought efforts put forth during the past 2 tournament championships. The impressive examples of hard work, dedication, determination, and grit are the reasons they are state champions, and we commend their efforts. Our coaches, Tom Hauk and Chris Leckleitner, take the time to teach our players how to be upstanding athletes, students, and people. Both teams have remarkable leadership in our coaching staff, and the amount of dedication that both put into the program 12 months a year is a countless blessing. We are very thankful for their staff's knowledge of the game and dedication to Wilson Water Polo. I've had the unique opportunity of watching the group of athletes dedicate countless hours in and out of the pool to improve their game. Every single player contributes. The dedication and work ethic they all have is very special. Walking into the pool on the first day of preseason, Coach Hauk had a variation of Pat Summitt's definite dozen listed on the whiteboard. Be respectful, take responsibility, demonstrate loyalty, learn to communicate, be self-disciplined, work hard, work smart, stay positive, put team first, be a competitor, learn to change, and handle success like you handle failure. And you all did just that. This marks the first season since 2001 that both boys and girls teams have brought back simultaneous championships to Wilson. To quote Coach L, anybody can win on any given day. Congratulations, we are Bulldog proud of you.
President Cocker, if I may.
Yes.
I'm fortunate enough to get to spend some time in the pool. My one son plays middle school water polo and swims, and I get to see just how much hard work and dedication these coaches and athletes put in, as I know they do in all of our extracurricular endeavors. This just happens to be the one I'm fortunate enough to really get to spend some time with. So I'd like to congratulate them, but also to the parents who all just left. I see what time and dedication they put into it as well. So I would like to congratulate them. That's a big victory for them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Next up for our communications, we have the Wilson Theater Company presentation of A Year with Frog and Toad.
Hi everyone, my name is Gretchen Himlin. I am a senior and I am this year's Wilson Theater Company president. I've participated in theater all 4 years of high school and I'm so thankful to be able to call this department my second home. Here at WTC, we strive to build a community of students both on stage and backstage who entertain, educate, and uplift. And besides productions, we also hold socials, fundraising events, and community events. This year's fall main stage production is A Year with Frog and Toad. The musical follows Frog and Toad through 4 colorful seasons, from hibernation to hibernation, featuring catchy tunes, funny dialogue, and bright, memorable characters. Whether they are rushing down a hill in a runaway sled with their playful, quirky friends, Snail, Turtle, and the birds, Squirrels, and Moles, losing all willpower when confronted with the cookie jar, or taking a picnic in summer, their adventures make for some of the simplest and most enjoyable moments on stage. In our increasingly fast-paced world, where friendships often are seen through a digital filter, it's good to be reminded that sharing the simplest adventures with our best friends often brings us the greatest joy. The show is November 17th and 18th at 7 p.m. and November 19th at 2 p.m. Now please enjoy the opening number from A Year with Frog and Toad.
We flew south for the winter, south for the winter. Every fall we pack our things and go. We know just how to time it, to find the proper climate, one that doesn't feature any snow. 'Cause when it snows you shiver, and it's difficult to fly. There isn't any food, which is another reason why. South for the winter, south for the winter. But we're back, it's almost spring. In spring the weather's lovely. It elevates the mood, but even more important, there's a plenitude of food. So if you're feeling peckish, you can go for seconds, even thirds. Winter's for the birds. No, it isn't. It's just an expression. Winter now is over. The snow has all been snowed. Spring is here, which starts the year with Frog and Toad.
Well, it's true, folks. Spring is finally here. The sun will be shining, the flowers will be growing, and the birds will be chirping.
Chirp, chirpity, chirp. Over here we have Frog. And over here we have Toad.
They are both at the end of a winter-long hibernation. Let's take a peek in and see what they're dreaming about.
I'd like to sing a little ode about my good friend Toad. Toad has just invited me to tea. He's not so good at sports, and of course he's got those warts, but Toad has been a lovely friend to me. Toad, I think, is vastly underrated. Furthermore, I think misunderstood. And in conclusion, I will add he is the finest friend of all the critters in the neighborhood. I love a lively dialogue with my good friend Frog, chatting over cozy cups of tea. He knows just the thing to say that will brighten up my day. Oh, Frog has been a lovely friend to me. Frog is very kindly in his nature, magnanimous whenever playing host. Of all the creatures in my sphere of influence, I'm fondest of the frog the most. There is a frog, there is a toad, and he lives just down the road. There could be no better friend for me, it seems. Frog is the frog, toad is the toad of my dreams. Hello, Toad. Oh, hello, Frog. What are you doing in my dream? Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. Oh, well, it is certainly nice to see you. Well, I feel the same way. How has your winter been? Well, I've been hibernating, so there isn't much to report. Yeah, it's about the same for me. This is a very nice dream, though. Yes, it is. Well, I'm getting ready to wake up soon, so you better get back to your own dream. I'll see you when you wake up. Yes, I better get back to hibernating. Spring is nearly here. Oh, I think it's just around the corner. Birds!
The sun is out, the sky is clear. We came back, spring must be here. So let's begin another year.
A year with Frog and Toad! A year with Frog and Toad!
Thank you to the Wilson Theater Company. That's a reminder that the Frog and Toad is 17th through the 19th. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of this job, is that we have performances from our students. In addition to the congratulatory aspect of our athletes, we also have live performances, and I can't wait to take my kids to the performance. That was amazing. Also, how the people in the background stood there frozen the whole time. You have to probably do some workouts beforehand. So congratulations, that was amazing, and I hope everyone partakes in the performance. Mr. Maravich, we do have public participation on agenda items. So do we have a review?
Rules of public participation at school board meetings pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Roberts Rules, and board policy. The following are the rules of public participation. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead is an opportunity to offer comments on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer those questions. The board respectfully requests that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it's the entire body that will need to consider the information in voting on future matters. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted, nor conversations. Individuals may not approach the board tables. Individuals shall make their comments from the speaker's lectern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I'll provide a 1-minute warning, and persons making threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. The above expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is in the district's website, embedded in board docs.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, from public participation, we have Val Delp on Performing Arts Project.
Good evening. First, I wanted to extend another congratulations to all the Wilson Athletics and specifically the boys and girls water polo teams and winning the state championships. They worked really hard, so we should all be very proud of their hard work and dedication. So as far as the performing arts plans, I just wanted to say I think you did a really nice job of kind of revamping that. I feel like it's a lot more focused. There's some, it's a little more prioritized, and I feel like it's more fiscally responsible. Myself, having been in concert band and marching band, I know how difficult it can be to set up and tear down a stage and how much time that takes. So really glad to see that the orchestra is going to get their own dedicated space, because I feel like that probably took a lot away from their rehearsal time. So that's really great. Also really like that you're adding some more classrooms back with them not having to utilize those with the new space. So that's really great. And I think you did a great job of really utilizing, the property and using the space between the gymnasium and the classroom wing to put the new auditorium in. I think that's a really great use of space, not really taking away from parking and traffic. So I think that was really a great job. So good work, everyone. I really appreciate it. I think the community is going to be much happier with what you guys have come up with. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Brianna Beidler, auditorium renovations.
Hello, my name is Brianna Beidler, and I'm a senior here at Wilson, as well as the president of Wilson Runway, and I'm an active theater member. The auditorium has given all of us a space to be our truest selves and develop the skills we are all most passionate about. I have done 10 shows and produced 2 fashion shows in these facilities and have been so grateful for the opportunity, but it is not difficult to notice some of the things that inhibit students from reaching their fullest potential. In no way am I complaining, but I do believe that if we have the funds and the plans to make this auditorium a better place for these students, we should take advantage of it. And I can guarantee that almost every person in this room who was opposing this plan woke up this morning and got dressed in the clothing that they loved, drove to work listening to their favorite music, and will leave this meeting to watch their favorite show or movie. Art is just as vital as any business or STEM job, and we should be preparing our students as such. I urge the members of this board to see this as an opportunity to help these students reach their fullest potential and make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Bryce Heilman, Music Wing Auditorium renovation.
Hello, my name is Bryce Heilman, and I am a junior here at Wilson. I've been using Wilson's facilities since before I was in kindergarten in this school district. I can recall in March of 2011 going to the auditorium to see Wilson's Wizard of Oz, one of my favorite shows, and falling in love with it. As I went through elementary school, I began to perform on that stage as part of the band, chorus, and orchestra in Whitfield. Since my very first day of freshman year, I remember sitting in that auditorium and walking through the music wing. So much has changed since I sat in those seats for the first time at the age of 5. I'm 17 now. So many different students have sat in those seats, walked on that stage, sang in the choir room, played an instrument in the band room, yet the facilities have stayed the same. Last year I started every single school day in the auditorium. Then I would have band, choir, and orchestra second. I had orchestra today, actually. We are preparing for a concert this Wednesday. We lost about 10 to 15 minutes of class time, as we do every orchestra day, because the orchestra and Mrs. Kuhn have to set up and take down seats and stands for everyone, since the orchestra does not have their own room. This plan proposes an orchestra room, which would allow for even just 15 extra minutes of practice time every day. This adds up to over an hour each school week of practice time that the orchestra does not currently have. The amount of knowledge and life experience I have gained from my involvement in theater and music is immeasurable. To anyone who says what is done in the auditorium and music wing reaps no educational benefit, I ask what their definition of education is. Because I've learned to effectively communicate and collaborate with my peers, to embrace everyone's individuality and ideas, to understand the importance of friendship and family, and to empathize with others' experiences. And to me, that is some of the most valuable and impactful education I've ever received. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Gabs Bradburn, auditorium.
My name is Gabs Bradburn. I'm a sophomore involved in Wilson Theater Company. Theater is not only important to me, but to many other people as well. There are countless hours of hard work that go into making productions. I would like to thank Miss Lennon, Mrs. Fredericks, and everyone else involved that dedicates their time to making such beautiful art. Students involved in theater deserve a good auditorium. Aside from fueling their passion, students can meet all different kinds of people in theater. There's a wide variety of people, all sharing a common interest. Theater parents would love to watch their kids fueling their passion in an auditorium that has been cared for. Aside from the performances, there are many educational things that students can learn by taking theater classes, such as the history of theater and acting methods. Every student at Wilson High School deserves to have access to an adequate area for their passion and interests, no matter what they are. I thank you for considering the renovations for the auditorium and opening it up for bids.
Thank you for your comments. Annalie Koch, Stage Auditorium Project.
Good evening. My name is Emily Koch, and I'm a 9th grade student. I'm here to talk with you about the revised auditorium renovation project on tonight's agenda. In a few days, I'm about to perform in my very first theater production as a high school student. I'm so excited and looking forward to an amazing experience. But you know, there's something I'm not excited about. I'm not looking forward to having my Nana say to me for the 50th time, "You know, Emily, this auditorium is the same auditorium that your parents had at Wilson when they went here in the 80s. Well, of course, we will talk about how the auditorium needs to be updated, how the chairs are uncomfortable, and how one of my family members will also make a comment on how they couldn't hear something that was said on stage. It's pretty much the same conversation that will ultimately result in another event at the high school auditorium. But I'm not really here to provide you with comedy, but I'm hoping to remind the board why this renovation is necessary and how the entire Bulldog community will benefit from this renovation. All students, not students involved in just the arts programs, but all students at multiple stages of their time at Wilson will be directly impacted. The high school has held elementary school concerts, special elementary assemblies, previews of high school theater performances for middle school students, Southern middle school concerts, freshman orientation, awards presentations, and even a one-time college athlete signing day. As you can see, you don't have to be an art student to be directly affected by this renovation. In that same thought, every student's family will also be impacted. Maybe it's sitting at an elementary school concert, watching a theater performance, or a district-wide meeting. Families of students will also be directly impacted. Let's not forget the staff at Wilson and our community members. Besides the new spaces that will provide necessary academic space for our teachers, there will also be times when the auditorium is the location of a district-wide staff meeting. And from the community standpoint, does anyone remember the Wilson Education Foundation's Iron Chef competition? The Iron competition itself was held in the auditorium. We pride ourselves on having the best community. Doesn't our Bulldog communities deserve the best? I know that some people are disappointed that this proposal didn't include connecting the lower and upper houses, but I'm happy to hear that this updated plan allows for that change to be added in the future. While there is no doubt that any student who is involved in the arts will benefit, I hope my comments are enough to remind the board why this renovation is so much more than just a new arts wing at the high school. This renovation is a Bulldog community impacting project for all Bulldogs, now and in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Grace Ola, Auditorium Renovation.
Hi. My name is Grace Ola, and I'm a senior at Wilson High School. I'm also one of the Wilson Theater Company media officers. I've been a part of WTC since my freshman year, and over that time period, it has truly become my second home. Not only do the actors, crew, and directors make up this family, but it extends onwards to the audience who supports us, the school who enables us, and the community as a whole. To me and many others in these departments, community represents those who support us and love us unconditionally, even when life is full of adversity. I am so grateful for this type of support and cannot imagine a future where our students do not have access to it. By voting to renovate our auditorium, you ensure a future where these departments are intact, and this type of community can still thrive. It's our responsibility to provide this future for our students, many of which, including all elementary school children, use, and are counting on us to continue to use. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Brooke Wagner, auditorium renovation.
Hello, my name is Brooke Wagner. I am in 11th grade. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I wanted to start off by asking if any of you have ever been to a Wilson Theater Company production or even been to a choir concert. Dr. Trickett, I know you attended the latest Treble and Select concert. We are all so very thankful for that. I want to stand here and tell you why theater is one of the most important activities at the school, or why at least it is to me. I remember walking into my first ever theater practice. I was in 9th grade. I got the opportunity to be one of the assistant stage managers. These other peers in theater welcomed me in with a smile and a hug. Yes, a hug. Something people don't get very much anymore. I remember sitting down and seeing Mrs. Fredericks playing with Aaron and Owen, and they started singing Off to Massachusetts together. And I thought, this is it. I finally found my home. I realize that there are people in our community, and even some of you on the board, that think theater and choir is not educational and that it does not contribute to a student's physical or mental well-being. However, I'm here to prove you wrong today. This is why theater and singing has given me confidence. Imagine standing in front of hundreds of people and singing and acting. Family. Having people support you no matter what. Emotional well-being. Always having someone to talk to. And mentorship. Mrs. Fredericks is always trying to see on the bright side of things and make us better. She also pushes us to be our best. Miss Lennon is like someone I strive to be, the main person I trust and go to with whatever I need. Since 9th grade, I always had the idea of wanting to be a theater teacher in my brain, but the more I worked with Miss Lennon, the bigger this idea has become, and the more and more I just wanted to be like her. The new proposed plan for the arts would make our program stronger than it already is. We could have actual mics that work and you could hear our actors with. We could have a safe stage. We could have a choir room without a pole in the middle of it, because at the moment, I cannot see my choir teacher conduct because there is a pole in my way. We could have actual changing rooms. And we could have an actual room for the orchestra because we don't have one at the moment. I encourage every single one of you to follow a music student or theater student for even a day to actually see what's going on. Because
1 minute.
we can all stand up here and talk about it, but it will never be the same as you actually seeing what's going on with these theater and musical students. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Emily Leiboff, auditorium renovation.
Good evening. My name is Emily Leiboff, and I am a sophomore here at Wilson High School. I am involved in the Wilson Theater Company, concert choir, treble choir, and select choir. Last year, I was the freshman representative for both choir and the theater company, and this year I am one of the event coordinators for choir. I will be performing in the upcoming production of Frog and Toad with the Wilson Theater Company. You may recall that I previously spoke at the May 2022 board meeting, stating that it's time to make the renovations to the auditorium and music area a priority. Tonight, I urge you to go forward with the renovation because it is time to take action and ensure this beneficial plan for future performing arts students begins now. The Wilson Theater Company provides a space where all students have a sense of belonging and can pursue their interests and express themselves, all while creating a bond with classmates of all grade levels. It is time to upgrade the auditorium so that there is an up-to-date space where creativity and imagination can flourish. As I mentioned in May, the auditorium is not just used by the students. The auditorium is a venue for a multitude of events, such as elementary school concerts, band, choir, and orchestra concerts, theater productions, and award ceremonies. These events are attended by a countless number of Wilson community members and family and friends who reside in other school districts. Is the current state of our auditorium what we truly want to present as a reflection of our school? It is time to upgrade the auditorium. The choir and band rooms are outdated and separated from the rest of the school's classrooms. The orchestra does not even have its own space to rehearse. Hundreds of students are involved in Wilson's stellar music program. It is time to approve the renovation program so that Wilson's music education can have the up-to-date space it deserves. To anyone who has any doubts about the importance of performing arts education, you do not fully understand the value of the performing arts, beyond just what it can teach everyone about expressing themselves, communication, working with others, problem solving, and so much more. It has had such an impact on so many people's lives. Being involved in theater has changed my life in so many ways. The Wilson Theater Company has become a second home for me and countless others to pursue our passions and create a family. I am so grateful for the bond that we have created under the guidance of Ms. Lennon and the joy that we bring to each other and to the Wilson community. Wilson School Board members, I respectfully urge you to approve the renovation plan tonight because it is time to take action and ensure this beneficial plan for future performing arts students begins now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Owen Fick, auditorium renovation.
Hello, my name is Owen Fick, and I'm the Vice President of the Wilson Theater Company, and I work closely with Danny as Vice President of our student government. 850. 850. That is the number of hours I've spent in our auditorium, and I'll surpass 1,000 by the time I graduate. How many of those who are against this plan can say the same? I feel that I have the experience and reliability to say that a new performing arts renovation is needed for the betterment of both our students and our community. Extracurricular activities here at Wilson provide an outlet for all students to pursue their interests after school. They build up skills like teamwork, communication, and leadership. Theater and music are no different. In fact, they may offer more opportunities to enhance one's skills: self-expression, confidence, controversy with civility. I believe that it would be wise to invest in these programs, not just so students can have fun, but also to build character outside the classroom. Also, there is a theater curriculum here at the high school. Our auditorium isn't just used for our theater company productions, but also as a classroom. Students taking theater classes that require the use of the stage have to learn in a room that is decades old. If I had to learn math or history in a classroom that old, I would be at an academic disadvantage. I mean, my dad is turning 50 on Thursday, and he had to sit in that auditorium. Happy early birthday, by the way. It is effectively the oldest classroom in the building, and modernizing it to reflect the rest of the school should be a priority. So you may ask, what have you been up to for those 850 hours? Well, along with using standard school subjects in our auditorium and music spaces, we learn how to respect each other and how to pursue our passions. Just as a modern classroom enhances learning for students, a modern auditorium and music wing would enhance our learning and passions immensely, ensuring students' success as adults for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Amanda Smith, auditorium renovation.
It's a lot taller than I am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Smith, and I'm a junior who has been involved in theater and choir here since freshman year. Ever since then, it has become a huge part of who I am. While I am not necessarily interested in pursuing a career related to theater, the lessons and virtues that I have learned on our high school stage have been just as important as what I have learned in a classroom. I've learned through countless concerts from elementary school to now how to have the courage to stand up and perform what I've worked so hard on. I've learned through theater classes how to improve my public speaking, which has aided me in numerous presentation assignments. I found a family of performers who have taught me the meaning of community and what it means to support each other. And finally, I've learned how to be the purest form of myself, both while performing and in the community that surrounds that stage. This has even helped me realize my eventual goal of becoming a teacher because of how much I realized I love working with others. I want future students to experience these same lessons that have shaped me into the person I am. I want them to have the space to allow them to grow from the elementary schoolers who use our auditorium for concerts to the middle schoolers who do the same and the high schoolers who use it for a myriad of performance opportunities and classes. If we allow our community space to grow and develop, we also ensure the growth and the development of future Wilson students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Gretchen Himlin, auditorium renovation.
As I said earlier, my name is Gretchen. I'm a senior and I'm this year's Wilson Theater Company president. I would like to take a moment to say that I am endlessly grateful to be in a school where the arts are supported by our administration. However, there are a small but strong few in the community who are not only indifferent to the arts, but would define them as non-educational. And as a student who has been a part of this department for their entire high school career, I cannot fathom a notion like that. I have learned more from experiencing these programs, these people, and this art form than anything else. I have learned lessons of communication, of leadership skills, the importance of family and self-value, as well as technical textbook skills regarding technology or design, directing, business, and production. I could not possibly tell you all that I've learned in 3 minutes of speaking time, but understand that the enrichment has impacted me so deeply and so greatly. Even though I will not reap the first-hand benefits of this renovation, nor will most, if not all, of my friends in the succeeding grades, maybe our siblings will, or your kids will, or one day my kids will. The future generation of students will. And this is about them more than it is about any of us here today. Tonight, a choice is presented before you. A choice to either enable or inhibit the enrichment of that generation. I just ask that as you vote, you keep them and the opportunities that you want to provide for them in mind. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you for your comments. Brian Shavinsky, Policy 819.
Good evening. Policy 819 is the suicide awareness, prevention, and response. I'm concerned by a pattern of questionable comments made during the school board meetings from a board member over the past year that seems to not support the purpose of the policy of 819. The purpose is stated as, the board is committed to maintaining a safe school environment to protect health, safety, and welfare of the students, to promote health development, and to safeguard against the threat or attempt of suicide among school-aged youth. Now I'm going to quote 3 of these concerning comments from the past year. First is a lack of respect by referring to a student as the black when relaying a story about an incident they heard about. Second is a lack of empathy by characterizing Japanese internment camps as internment camps. They were fed, they were educated, everything was above board. Third is an implied threat of violence just last week, suggesting violence towards the transgender community. The quote, maybe it's not the child, it's the parent. So it's an issue, I don't care what anybody says, that's an issue for me. I would not want, well, you wouldn't want to be in the same street as me if I seen that occurring, but anyways, that's another story. End quote. I find this pattern of comments incredibly unnerving. That's why I've highlighted them tonight. I'm not sure where we go from here with that, but I know that minimizing, dismissing, and implying violence against minorities, oppressed groups, and any other person does not support creating a healthy environment. Maybe they were unaware of how these comments come across. I hope this board member takes my comments to heart and reflects on how their words affect others that may not have a voice. Our community deserves a board that is curious, empathetic, and celebrates the diversity found throughout our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Michael Kaminskis, Agenda 12.3, Elk Environmental.
I'm Michael Kaminskis, and I'm a grandparent of 3 Wilson School District students. 12.3 is approving a contract for Elk Environmental for the disposal of 2 55-gallon drums of diesel, water, and sludge hazardous waste generated by the last professional underground fuel storage tank cleaning. That's the description that you will see tonight. I've talked to facilities and transportation, and they've clarified a lot of the things that I couldn't pick. without reading the quote. I'll digress a little bit. I've worked contracts for 40 years as an Air Force engineer and a contractor to the federal government after my Air Force career. So I've done a lot of estimates, a lot of quotes. I look for itemized information, and so I'm looking for what the content is and what the bottom line is for any quote. When I looked at the Elk environmental quote, there are a lot of things in there that have no dollar value and says has to be determined. One thing that surprised me is I learned before the meeting that the chemical analysis had already been done and provided to Elk Environmental, but Elk Environmental's quote says if it's different than what is listed, additional charges will come into place. It also doesn't cover what's covered by the sales tax, what's covered by the 5% waste handling and process fee. Does that apply or not? How about tolls? Don't they know where they're going to be taking the hazardous material for disposal? And there's a diesel fuel surcharge, but no listing of how much. So what's the bottom line? Before the meeting, I found out that the contract should be not to exceed $600.
1 minute.
That's not found anywhere on the quote. I hope the person who wrote that quote is not a graduate of the Wilson School District. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago, Building Project.
Oh, everybody's taller than me, so, okay. So, good design is obvious, great design is transparent. In order for a message to be effective, it has to be impactful, clear, and relatable to an audience. Great leaders know how to analyze an audience and adapt and deliver the message in a way that maximizes economic, environmental, and societal value, specific to the audience to ensure reception. The lack of change management in this project is severely impacting these performing arts students. And perhaps I'd like to suggest maybe sharing a renovation model canvas that would help the community better understand the value created by visualizing these pieces, the most strategic elements of the program. It's very hard to follow for individuals who haven't been in the business world, in following all these PowerPoints. They just need to know what they're paying for and what the students get out of it. So if you could possibly provide the value proposition, the key activities, the resources, the channels, all of those pieces that come with a business operating model canvas in one page, I'm sure the community would be way more receptive and we could have better conversations. It also is going to make sure that we're cognizant of also how school culture is affected during renovation processes. There's a lot of pieces there, that power may be lost, walkways, traffic, barriers, noise levels. Those are all things that would come up on that canvas that we could have intelligent discussions about instead of, finger pointing, because these kids aren't winning. And I'm sad to hear the message that a lot of these students came up here thinking that, the opposition is that we don't like the arts. The arts are critical to my success as a global business leader and my involvement with clients. The communication aspects and just everything you learn in the arts. I would not have been successful without it. It is my feeling that, the board and the communication has let them down. It's just the lack of transparency, the lack of clarity. It's not that the community hates the arts. We just want to know what we're paying for.
1 minute.
I think you owe it to them. And I don't know, it makes me really sad because I listen to all these students. Guys, I love what you guys do, and it is so important, and we all feel that way. So and I know I speak for many community members when I say it's not the arts, it's the communication and clarity.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on agenda items. The board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel and litigation. Thank you. Looking for 2.1, request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on October 17th, 2022, as attached.
So moved, Negrini.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini.
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Payment of bills, requesting a motion to approve the bills. Oh, sorry, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. Motion to approve the payment of bills from the general fund in the amount of $3,654,125.32 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
McCray?
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Abstain.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. Before I get into my report, I just want to take a moment here to address the fine students and people that we have here tonight speaking. To me, when I synthesize what I hear you say and I look at the passion in your eyes, I look out at our staff members that are here quietly just listening to your remarks, it makes me think a lot about the community that we have here, and many of you referenced this. We have an incredible responsibility here as educators, teachers, administrators, board members, people in our community, to ensure that those experiences that you have every day lead to the feelings that you communicated today, talking about family. I heard people talking about connections, creating a second home. That is a powerful statement for a 17-year-old student to say to a group of strangers. To me, in essence, you were defining our vision. What does it mean to be a public school district? What is it that we should embody every single day? And you did it in a way that sometimes adults just can't do. So I just wanted to thank you for being here and being committed to speaking your truth. And to the parents that are here supporting these great young people, you're incredible parents. Thank you for sharing your kids with us. Some of you, clearly, Owen is here about 12 hours a day. So thank you for entrusting us with his care. I just want to comment quickly on our state championship teams as well. I know they're not here anymore, but what an accomplishment. To be the best in the state at anything, doesn't matter what it is, that's an accomplishment. And the fact that we had 2 of those teams do that this Saturday and the prior Saturday is quite special. Again, speaks to the value of public education and what we do here. It's not just about reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and so forth. It's a more comprehensive approach. So thank you. Tonight, just a simple report recommending all items inclusive of the superintendent's report, personnel and programmatic recommendations.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent items 4.1 through 4.8 as presented. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any comments?
President Cocker,
Yes,
I just
Mrs.
want to
Casper.
acknowledge Pam Reinert for her 27 years of service. She has, at Southern Middle School, has been able to greet my students as they come in at night, not knowing English, and direct them to their classrooms. So, and she's been incredibly, I'm just really grateful for her service and for the time that she has spent in the district. So I just wanted to give her a shout out.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Any other comments? I would like to then kind of piggyback on that with Mr. Gaiswaite. I know that he has done a lot for technology in the high school, but he also, my first interaction with Mr. Gaiswaite was digging through a closet by the track for softball equipment when I was a volunteer coach my first year, and I don't know if he's continuing to do that now. No, I hope that we have a good replacement, because that is not an easy job to find where, store the equipment from one season to the next and then find what everyone needs. So thank you to both of our retirees. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under consent items, Request to accept with gratitude the following donations. For West Middle School, PA Council of Trout Unlimited, $300 to purchase chemical testing kits, chemical treatments for water changes, pump filters, and additional replacement parts for trout. And Van Reed Athletic Association for the gift of an Ingersoll Rand Club car UTV to be used by the Operations Department for the care of our properties and fields. Looking for a motion for 5.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 6.1, request to approve entering into a 5-year agreement with Dr. Andrew Hoffert as Assistant Superintendent, effective November 8th, 2022 through November 7th, 2027, at a starting annual salary of $158,500. Oath of office for Superintendent with Judge Madeline Feudman, assuming that this passes. Looking for a motion for 6.1.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, second. Any discussion?
President
Okay.
Cocker.
Yes, Dr. Schreckett.
Yes, for the board and the community members that are here, students and staff, I just want to officially welcome Dr. Hoffert, who's sitting in the front here, to a new role within our team. He's been serving this community really since right before the pandemic. He came to us from Chester County, and in every single opportunity, every challenge that was presented to him, often without it even being asked of him, he more than exceeded our expectations. So our entire leadership team, and I know the community as well, agrees that we have full confidence in him to take the charge in a rebranded role. He'll be focusing specifically on student and staff well-being, the safety and security of our students, supporting all facets of the student services, which is essentially what he does right now, inclusive of that is special education, and all the other pieces that come with that, as well as having a larger leadership role with some of our divisional directors throughout the school district. So I just want to congratulate Dr. Hoffert. I know his family is here as well, and thank everyone for continuing to support him.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Okay, congratulations, Dr. Hoffert. That's, swear, we'll have you sworn in right now. And Dr. Hoffert, if your family wants to come up.
All right, please repeat after me. I, Andrew Hoffert,
I, Andrew Hoffert,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Hoffert.
And thank you, Judge Feudman. I probably misrepresented 15 minutes, and it's about an hour, but. And Your Honor, now I get to say you're dismissed.
6.3, request approval of an amended Assistant Superintendent Agreement with Dr. Stacy Stout as attached. 6.4, request approval to authorize the appointment of Joni Lefevre to Director of Special Education, $135,000 effective to be determined. And 6.5, request approval to approve grade level leaders, chairs, and mentors as attached. Looking for a motion for items 6.3 through 6.5.
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider?
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 7.1, request approval of the agreements between the Wilson School District and the Wyomissing School District to educate 4 special education students being provided multiple disability support at a cost of $56,760 per student for the 2022-23 school year. Wyomissing will be billed on a quarterly basis. 7.2, request approval of the IDEA B agreement with the BCAU in the amount of $1,113,574.66 to be used for special education costs in the 2022-23 fiscal year as attached. Looking for a motion to request approval for Student Services Agenda Items 7.1 and 7.2. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper, second.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to point out, as I try to do whenever these types of things come up, that this is not money that we're paying out. This is money that will be coming into the district for the various needs.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Dr. Trickett?
Yes, sorry for the interruption. I just want to take a moment here. Dr. Hoffer did step out with his family, which is absolutely the appropriate thing to do. I just want to have Joni, I believe she's here somewhere in the audience. Joni, could you stand, please? Thank you. You're behind Christine. This is Joni Lefevre, everyone. She was just approved as our new Director of Special Education. So coming to us from the Lancaster County area, over 20 years of experience in special education as an educator, most recently for about the past decade as an educational leader, again, serving multiple different disciplines within student services and special education specifically. So we're very excited to have you on board, and you look great in red. So thank you so much for being here.
Under Technology and Media, request approval to renew the contract with Lincoln Intermediate IU for E-rate counseling services for the E-rate fiscal year 2023. Fiscal cost is dependent on final number of E-rate submissions and final reimbursement amount. Looking for a motion for 8.1.
McCray?
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider?
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, request authorization for the addendum to the contract with Crabtree, Rohrbach and Associates to enter the schematic design phase for the new high school performing arts center, inclusive of the investigative process necessary to design. Looking for a motion for 9.1.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Martin?
Yes, this may take a few minutes, but first of all, I want to thank all the folks from the Theater Arts for presenting their well-written notes. One thing that bothered me about, a couple of you said that the board was opposed, or several members were opposed to the project. I'm not sure where that came from. It must have been, from, passing down the lane, but I was kind of disappointed to hear that because I don't think anybody on this board is opposed to the idea. With that said, at the last board meeting, I kind of outlined why I was disappointed with the process and how it worked, and Ed challenged me to come up with a better plan. and he said he'd come forth with a better plan. So I spent over 20 hours putting together, reviewing documents, walking the campus, looking at the parking several times, different days. I was here different hours of the day, looking at traffic flow. And I did come up with a plan, I think, because actually it was superior to what was presented to the board at the last board meeting, which was the first time I've seen it. So I did, like I said, Ed, I did take you up on your challenge. We can build this project as a standalone facility, which would improve not only the aesthetics of what's being presented, but it would also, I believe, would be a more favorable building for eyesight, for one, and also trying to shoehorn something into a space that in itself promotes additional and higher costs. A standalone building would be much nicer, and I know some of the concerns were that we'd be taking too much parking away. There's areas, and once again, I'm not saying this because I didn't do my homework. I did do my homework. I walked through the whole campus and identified spaces where additional parking could be added. There'd be no downtime at all for the students in their theater productions or acts. They wouldn't have to leave the campus for that. And, you know, I'm kind of disappointed because I did meet with the director of facilities, and maybe we had a misunderstanding, I'm not quite sure. But, and obviously, you know, I respect Jeff a lot. But I feel that, once again, I was offered a challenge. I want to delay this vote for at least 2 weeks so people could, you know, actually look at this. But obviously that did not occur. So I'm disappointed with that, and I'm going to leave it go at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Martin. Any other comments on 9.1? Mr. Negrini.
Just very briefly, you know, we've been talking about renovating this auditorium for a long time. I've been on the board now 12 years, and after we completed the project of the natatorium, Gursky Stadium renovation, and Mack Field, you know, I served on the facilities committee. I remember talking about, after that meeting, a capital campaign project, because it was long overdue for the arts program here at Wilson to get its due after all of the years of athletics, certainly reaping the benefit of the finances being spent in terms of borrowing projects. And again, for whatever reason, through the years, as ideas grew out of the idea of renovation and doing things throughout the district, and then trying to do all of this at one time, you know, year after year, this has been further delayed. In terms of transparency and listening to the community, obviously, we took bids, we rejected those bids, we heard from the community to say, go back, take a closer look at finding ways to save money, to focus on priorities that is beneficial from an educational standpoint, and propose something different. And we did so. There was a public presentation at our last public meeting here 2 weeks ago. We had so even before that at a combined extracurricular and facilities meeting. And I believe that this board has done a tremendous amount of due diligence to try to balance out fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers, and to try to put forth a quality product for our students and faculty in the arts program. It is clear from the last presentation that this is an additional square footage for many of our classes in chorus, band, orchestra, from a theatrical performing arts facility. There is an added benefit. But again, we have to remember that this is the high school campus that has been here for decades and will be here for decades afterwards. This is an investment into our community as much as it is an investment into the folks that are currently here and will soon be here afterwards. So again, there can be ways to find savings in any particular project. And you can certainly go back and come up with different ideas, and perhaps, as Mr. Martin had alluded to, suggest that in the dollar figures, there would be a savings, but is it a benefit to this community in terms of planning for decades to come of what this high school campus is going to look like? And I think there's certainly consideration taken into all who have spoken here tonight, who have spoken here previously through the years, not just through the months, through the years that have come forth and spoken. And I think what has been done, what has been presented, has been transparent, has been thoughtful and careful. And I believe that this is something that we should move forward with this evening. Again, this is the authorization of entering into the design phase. Certainly things can change in the future, but again, we need to keep this ball moving forward in a positive direction, which is long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Negrini. Other comments from the board? Mr. Case?
Yes, thanks. Just a quick note. Thanks, Jay. Well said. I just wanted to thank all the community members and the students that spoke tonight. No matter what we do, many of you will not see the benefits that we vote on tonight and in future votes. But one thing that always comes back, I'm an outsider from the Wilson community, born and raised on Long Island. And one thing from Smithtown, New York, that I've noticed with my high school is a lot of people go there and they don't come back. They go to college and they stay away. I don't know if that's because the taxes are high or whatnot. But one thing with Wilson is many, many people go away and come back. So everything that you're talking about today, there's probably going to be many of you that your kids will go to this school. So you're truly making an investment in the future, and you're behind that. You will be paying some of the taxes for this school district in the future. So I thank you for being committed to that and the arts. And as we talk about school board members that may not know anything about the arts, I just want to say I was Simon Stride in a Wilson Summer Theater project, which was a musical, and I sang. There's no tape, from my understanding, but it was great. So, when we talk about that, I tried out to be the dentist in Little Shop of Horrors, and the play was going to be on the birth of my daughter. So I chose not to participate in that. And then there was also a play, a musical called Handsomest Man in America that was written actually by one of our Wilson students at the time, Sam Lupowitz, which was phenomenal, probably right up there with Hamilton. Just has never gotten the notoriety, and I think if he would work that, he could have a play, and it was about Abe Lincoln, and it was phenomenal. So when we talk about the values, whether you're on the wrestling mat or a football field, any kind of extracurricular, for theater and music, it is the exact same. I stood up there, and I remember, and supposedly this happens all the time, the night before you're about to go live with any kind of a musical or a play, I remember wanting to call everyone I invited to not come because I felt we weren't ready. And I heard this is normal, and you have to have a faith in your team to put it all together, that everything will come together the next day, and if it doesn't, no one's going to know. Most audience members aren't going to know. But when we talk about being behind stage in the dressing rooms, the bad mics, just everything about the auditorium in the high school, that was over 18 years ago, 16 years ago, somewhere 15 years ago. It's all the same. It needed help then, it needs help now. So we have a great plan in place. It's the value of the arts is important, and I really do appreciate that what Dr. Trickett said earlier, before the meeting, kind of about, you mentioned about the Performing Arts Center being an essential portion of Wilson School District, of the high school. So everyone who comes to the building will be sort of around the halls of the Performing Arts Center. So to have other alternatives of moving this to a parking lot and then having 800 or 900 students tracing through a parking lot does not seem like a good solution. This is a great plan. I think the building is phenomenal and beautiful, and I think this is going to be great for Wilson and long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Case. Mr. Schneider?
Yeah, I don't want to keep going over the same points, but first, I'd like to thank all the community members, particularly the students that spoke, as has been mentioned several times. So well-spoken, such a nice job laying out your arguments for us. I would reiterate what both Mr. Negrini and Mr. Case have been saying about this being an investment in the community, this being an investment in our future, that so many of the students that spoke tonight will have kids of their own who were in productions. I was in a production when I was in Wilson. Unfortunately, there is tape, but luckily I wasn't singing. I've seen the number of lives that this has touched over the years, and while not quite as old as young Mr. Fick's father, it was in need of work back then. I can agree with that, and I strongly support this going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Other comments, Mr. Martin?
Yes, here's part of the problem. Ed just made a comment. I wasn't going to say anything else, but Ed said, without anybody actually looking what was proposed, he has no clue about these 850 kids going back and forth. That's the problem. I did my homework on this. There was a way of keeping the existing auditorium in place, making the additional space needed for the orchestra, but I didn't get a chance to present it because I couldn't present it. That's the problem. Everybody in this room, everybody knows that we need a new project, a new auditorium. No, I don't think anybody would question that. It's just how we go about it. So that's it. I'm done.
Thank you for your comments. Any other discussion? Mr. McCray?
Yeah, I would just add, again, thank you to all of you who spoke tonight. A lot of you spoke about how some of your best memories and your most maybe prideful moments of your high school career occur in that facility. I would just add that from a parent perspective, sometimes some of our most proud moments occur also watching you on those stages. I remember having the joy of watching, at that time, my 5th grade daughter perform as Little Cosette in Les Mis several years ago. And I would just say it's time to move forward with a facility that reflects the pride and the quality of the product that our Wilson family continuously puts out year over year. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Okay, having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Abstain.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain.
Under Finance, 10.1, request approval to transfer the remaining balance from Environmental Club of $264.82 to Student Government and inactivate the Environmental Club. 10.2, request permission to establish a student activity account named Hope for Humanity Club in the high school Student Activities Fund. Looking for a motion to approve finance agenda items 10.1 and 10.2.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider?
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, request approval of a contract with We Video for schools for a 12-month multi-user license for $1,694 for cloud-based editing that allows users of all skill levels the opportunity to create professional-style content pending solicitor review and approval. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second?
Kennedy.
Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, 12.1, request approval for the retirement of, I think it was 11 vehicles. 12.2, request approval of a resolution with Berks Career and Technology Center for Wilson to start providing transportation for our students attending BCTC, starting with the 23-24 school year. 12.3, request approval of a contract with Elk Environmental to dispose of diesel, water, sludge, hazardous waste. Looking for a motion to approve transportation agenda items 12.1 through 12.3.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Correct.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion?
With regard to the committee member that mentioned about having not to exceed $600, is that something of value that we can make an amendment and put that in the contract?
John, I'll defer to you. And the board agenda item, $600 was placed at the top of the total cost. I don't know if that's sufficient. Ryan, if you can go back, please, to the actual agenda item itself, not the contract, the agenda item. 600 at the top, dollar amount. That's in reference to, I believe, the question. Should say not to exceed $600.
I would just say that the board would amend the action for the contract not to exceed $600, so that's acceptable.
Okay, do we need to have a motion to amend that?
Let me read it, and then this will be what you're voting. Approve a contract not to exceed $600 with Elk Environmental for the proposal, for the disposal of 2 55-gallon drums of diesel, water, and sludge hazardous waste generated by the last professional underground fuel storage tank. So that's what we're voting.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich.
So then can we do a motion, a second, first and second?
Yes, okay. So I'm looking for a motion on items 12.1 through 12.3, including the amended 12.3 that Mr. Maravich just read. So looking for a motion for that.
So moved.
Mr. Case, thank you. Looking for a second.
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to point out that I have the highest regard and full faith in the heads of our transportation and operations departments, and know that they would not bring us something that is not already above board.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
And I would agree, no question. I do feel we may have an opportunity for continuous improvement to word our motions better in the future. That's all. So, thank you.
Thank you for that discussion. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, we have first reading for policy 819, suicide awareness, prevention, and response. 611, purchases budgeted. 612, purchases not budgeted. 613, cooperative purchasing. 614, payroll authorization. Under miscellaneous, request approval of KRE security agreement for 2022-23 school year to provide security services to the Wilson High School pending solicitor approval. And just as a note for this item, we already are under contract, but it is a year-to-year contract for the extra security guards that we have at our district. So looking for a motion for 14.1.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Looking for a second.
Negrini,
Mr.
second.
Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Dr. Kennedy.
I've heard multiple times that while this security service is needed, that perhaps they're not utilized as efficiently as they could be. I'm thinking like having a schedule to where they're supposed to be at what time during the day and which bathrooms they need to be. We have our own security guards and they're wonderful ladies. And I just feel like we need them to be more purposeful in what they're doing at our school. Like, I would like to see them have a schedule from 7:55 to 8:20 you're here, and maybe rotate it through the days so that they're just kind of not like, because they don't have the pulse of our school as much as our actual Wilson security guards do.
Dr. Trickett?
Sure, thank you. I'll circle back with Officer Johnson and our high school principal team just to make sure that the things that you mentioned are being reflected in their daily schedules. So thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on 14.1? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. That brings us to committee reports. BCTC, Mrs. Casper.
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. The meeting was held at the East Campus on October 26th. At the beginning, we got a small tour and a presentation of the Early Childhood Education Program, in which Wilson has the highest number of students enrolled compared to the other 15 sending districts. We received an update about our recruitment, and they plan to add an additional open house in February with plans to implement more outreach to our middle schoolers, in particular to promote careers in a more exploratory way. And their next open house for the East Campus is scheduled for this week, November 9th, from 5:30 to 8:30. As I made reference, we received the latest enrollment data from BCTC. It was shared with us, and this time, they prepared it in a way where we could get the enrollment numbers per career cluster, which I found a little bit more enlightening in terms of what our students are interested in terms of career paths at BCTC. So it showed for all the 16 sending districts, and for Wilson, Wilson has the highest representation in the early childhood education program, as well as the highest representation in the communications cluster compared to the other 15 districts. The communication cluster includes the advertising, art, and design technology, as well as the video media content production. So a lot of that, we're getting more interest from our students. In addition, the top 3 individual careers selected by our students are culinary arts, health occupations, and medical health professions, and the electrical occupations. So in addition, I know that Wilson also offers an exceptional assortment of opportunities to our students in the forms of internships, vocations, hobbies, clubs, music, service, athletics, and that's just to name a few. So a couple of areas that I've been concerned with over the past year or two as the representative for BCTC are first, the transportation issue at BCTC, including the costs and the costs associated with sending our students to BCTC. I know that the cost per pupil is not cheap. And tonight, we just additionally approved absorbing the cost for transporting our students to the BCTC campuses. So just let me be clear that the reason I sit on this committee is number one, I believe that careers offered at CTCs deserve to be held to a much higher standard in education than they have been in the past. And the pandemic was a clear wake-up call in our labor market to this issue. Not only do we need to value the careers more, but more importantly, we need to place more value on the workforce who occupy these essential components of work in our society. And number two, I strongly support that all students could benefit from a skill or a trade that can be learned or acquired outside of the classroom environment and still pursue college. Not one or the other, but the possibility of being able to do both. So my issue here is about how we reconcile with the price tag of sending students to BCTC, the conundrum of transportation in terms of having to handle, the additional runs, the timing, sometimes the scheduling that conflicts, and the added expense and promoting BCTC career pathway to our Wilson families. Having many opportunities right here at Wilson, on our Wilson campus. We all share a fiduciary responsibility to what's in the best interest of our students and in our community. I'm just wondering, to what extent do we promote some of the careers offered at BCTC, and are there resources that might be better suited and available right here at our main campus? So that was just a question that I thought maybe we could talk about. We don't have to talk about it right here, right now, but if anyone wants to chime in, I'd appreciate it.
Well, Mrs. Casper, I think that's a great point. Is it possible for you to share with the rest of the board, like the breakdown of
Yeah.
where most of the students?
I just got approval this afternoon to see if I could share the document, so I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of it.
Because I think that's really interesting. We know a total number of how many students we send to BCTC, but we don't, necessarily know the breakdown of the
Absolutely.
popularity of topics, so.
Absolutely, and then thinking about what we just approved today, and that the top careers that our students are pursuing at BCTC kind of align with the performing arts and the media, given that, we're going to be expanding and, really nurturing that area of our campus, what that's going to look like for BCTC and the interests that we pull from our students to go there as well. So just something to think about.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper.
Thank you. Our next meeting is on Thursday, December 15th at the West Campus.
And do you have student services?
Yes, we do have student services. We met on November 2nd, and some of the topics under mental health and counseling, the mental health nights, the next mental health night is scheduled for November 16th at 7 p.m., and the topic is your child's anxiety. The Cook Center team is also developing a survey to send out to all parents who registered for previous sessions with options for spring topics. So the survey link will be sent to all families who registered for previous sessions. So, and the data from the survey will be used to select the 3 topics for the spring sessions. Under our equity and student experience, the school culture survey, we are still in the process of collecting the data from the school climate survey that went out last month to parents, community, and staff and students. The results are still being collected. There's still time to complete the survey. This will remain open until November 11th, I believe. Just a reminder that this survey was our first step in the equity audit, and we hope to pull the data in and do a pre-analysis to uncover some of the themes that we see. Once that's complete, we expect to bring the equity committee in to review the data and discuss possible focus group questions. Since many of the student representatives from last year's Equity Committee now graduated, we hope to recruit some new student members for the Equity Committee. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper.
President Cocker,
Yes.
can we just have a small conversation about the BCTC
Yes.
stuff? Some of the things that I go back to, and we've had many conversations about BCTC with regard to, BCTC wants students to start and complete a program. They do not cater to students who just want to take a couple of classes. We have family consumer science here, at Wilson. So it's kind of like you can take those classes within our four walls. What I feel always with Wilson is that we need some sort of a consumer auto or consumer electronics or consumer, electrical, family electrical, like for home or consumer home building, if you will. Maybe not a full program, but the interest of those classes, I know that is what saved me in high school. I looked forward, that's what got me out of bed and got to school for learning how to take a small engine apart or my car in the shop. Now, I'm not expecting that we would have a car and a lift here, but when we had an auto repair shop within our high school, I had all college prep classes or going to school, but I can also get my hands dirty and cater to that hobby, which I still have today. So I think there's an in-between, depending on what we're looking for. I'm sure there are some classes we could possibly pull back into the four walls of Wilson, but I guess a question for Dr. Turkington and the team would be, have we surveyed students and what they want? Is there a need that not everyone wants to go off campus for 4 hours, each day, that they want to go down the hall and do something? So I know we have a lot of things with regard to STEM and some other classes, but is there a need have we surveyed students here? And that may be a different conversation than what you're asking about. You may
No,
wanna
that's
pull-
exactly what I was trying to get at.
You may want to pull full programs in here, but I'm not sure that there may be a balance.
Yeah, I think
there.
a lot of I think we need to be a little more intentional or strategic in terms of, number one, how we're recruiting students. As you mentioned, BCTC requires them to complete the program there. Are students aware of that going into it? And is it something that they're just doing to get off the campus? And then I think, given the issue with transportation, I don't think this issue is going to go away anytime really soon. And so I think we're going to have to revisit, how we get the students there. And, I don't know from Randy's perspective what that's been like in terms of, having to figure out our drivers' schedules. I know students have complained that, they'd just rather not go if it's a day that we're half a day here, because they can't ensure that they're going to be able to have a ride back. And it's just one of those things where, there's a lot of moving pieces. But yeah, I was hoping that we could talk about, how what we do offer aligns with what students are interested in and what they've been interested in, and how we might be able to kind of promote the things that we probably just won't be able to do here a little bit more, and promote the stuff that we do have here in a way that, still allows the student to have the options and is well-rounded.
And I would just add that, we are the customer. Every school district has this, this need. If a student wants to go and take a couple of career-bound classes at BCTC, we should get together as multiple school districts and say, we are the customer, that is what we would want. We're all spending money towards it, and BCTC is trying to align with the state numbers for the programs that they're trying to have completions. not just people that are, or students that are going and not finishing. But you can get a lot of value in a career going part-time and not finishing a program, or having BCTC adjust items to cater to school districts. And I understand they're changing that a little, but, maybe they need to do that more. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
I just want to add a few things, because I was on this years ago, and this came up maybe 8, 9 years ago on a board, that we wanted to do everything and just keep kids here, and then it doesn't work. We don't have the ability to do that. People forget, I shouldn't say people forget, parents forget that over 60% of everybody who goes to college either fails or doesn't get a job in their curriculum or their occupation. What the Vogue Tech, what they offer is for, I'm just going to use electrical, what you mentioned, electricity and stuff. That's not a 1-year program. That's a 3-year program. So when they graduate, they move into an apprenticeship, and then, there's a really good paying job. Same way with plumbing. I hate to go through this whole process again. Maybe there's some, areas that we might be able to bring back, but we spent a lot of time on this before, and we just couldn't have the ability. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, no, it's good points. And again, I'm thinking more consumer electrical, changing light switches, simple circuitry, things like that, not going for a full program. If you're going to do a full program like that, BCTC is definitely the way to go. But I think there's that, we're lacking in people are graduating high school and further education in college and not knowing how to change a light switch. That's a problem in America, in my opinion.
That's true, and I'm going to date myself, but we had when I was in high school, we had electrical class, because we had metal shop, we had a wood shop and graphic arts shop. But that, because of the pressure on schools, to get this, and this, and your ducks in a row for grades, a lot of stuff goes by the wayside, but you're 100% right. I mean, I'm going to talk about something shortly under legislative, but we had that ability to do that back then. Now there's just, everything is so condensed, you gotta, there's no room, time-wise, to get other things involved.
Well, and with transportation being an issue and an ongoing issue, and I think we explored a couple of years ago the idea, and perhaps it's worthy of revisiting, within our geographic location of kind of having a cohort within, a few mile radius here to say, well, Wilson perhaps offers this that may be utilized by Mifflin students, Wyomissing students, Conroe Weiser students. Again, I'm just pulling those out. And, working with some of those districts to say, we're going to offer something similar, that we don't have to take on everything, but at the same time, recognizing, as you mentioned, that we're the customers here to say, is there a better way of offering these opportunities that's not limiting the district or others in terms of what we pay, and the difficulties in transporting students to one location and half of the time throughout the school day, as opposed to having, students here all the time. Again, I think it's worthy of having those discussions with neighboring districts. I'm sure those conversations happen often, but, as we've talked about before, with thinking outside the box as far as how we offer education, and as we become more and more off-campus with a lot of our opportunities, this may be something worthy of discussion with our neighboring superintendents and boards.
Thank you. Thank you for that discussion. Dr. Charquet?
Yeah, just briefly here, I love the conversation, the focus on career readiness and, partnering with parents in our community to ensure that kids are career and life ready. Again, I go back to conversations I feel that perhaps may have occurred throughout the last decade that maybe shifted things maybe a little away from career readiness. And I do agree that the pandemic has kind of shined the light back on the need there. So it's a perfect transition into some of the work that we've been working on as a district with regards to our profile of a Wilson graduate. So we are in the position now as a leadership team where we will be coming to our board and our community very soon, before the winter break, not the Thanksgiving break, but the winter break, before the year ends, to talk about and get approval for some of those indicators. And specifically, when we look at industry-based or some of the competencies, we're looking at things where kids would have to achieve 2 or more of these types of indicators: a work-based learning experience, competent or proficient on the NOCTI, earn some type of industry-recognized credential, score advanced on an industry-based assessment, be competent or advanced on the ASVAB. So there are many indicators within that assessment that help our kiddos to find career paths. 25 hours of community service, being involved in a dual credit or career pathway course, and then also some conversations with co-curriculars and extracurriculars, because we believe that gives them some of the skills. This data, this information indicators came from a lot of research-based work that we've been doing over the last couple of years. So that's coming very soon for the board and for the community to weigh in on. Back to the original comment, the BCTC provides a different experience than our schools can provide. I agree 100% with that conversation. I also agree that we as a local school district have to look at what we're doing. Mr. Case has been talking about this, I think, since he served on this committee. And we had all those courses. We did that, and we moved away from it because other needs came up. But it's time to ask the kids. I love that. Let's ask the kids, Dr. Cachufo, what they need, because they're our customers. Let's ask them what they want, and let's program for them. Because I'm not so sure we always do that. So that's my takeaway. A challenge to Dr. Cachufo and our high school team and middle school teams is making sure that we're engaging our kids and parents in what they think is best. So let's keep that conversation going and engage our curriculum committee here over the winter months to make sure we have some type of a plan to put in place.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett, and I will share that data with everyone, and including the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. All right, BCIU, Dr. Kennedy.
In an effort to get back on track, I'm going to take my 3+ hour BCIU board meeting and give you just a little snippet. The BCIU had the 2022 Keeping Kids Safe Symposium. It focused on community care. Mr. Joshua McNeil was the speaker, and over 80 educators and community partners were in attendance. They had 2 sessions. One was supporting yourself and your staff, and another was creating supportive environments for students, which clearly we are. The other thing is that the BCIU is doing, I thought was of note, is that from October 17th to 21st, they marked School Bus Safety Week. And they tried to really publicize the procedures for when you're supposed to stop for a bus, which I wouldn't think is very hard, but considering our community comments last meeting, it's very much needed. And the BCIU had a very popular Common In-Service Day for the related arts and paraprofessionals last month. I know from being a teacher that a lot of the times the music teachers and the art teachers, and they kind of feel left out on professional development days. So this one was nice just for them and just for our para-educators. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Do you have a curriculum committee report?
I do have a curriculum committee report. We talked about field trips, and we talked about a new process for reviewing out-of-state, overnight, and abroad field trips. And we're currently reviewing the process to see how it's working. We talked about the honors French trip, and they were having a little bit of a chaperone issue, and we talked about what we thought would be appropriate. That didn't include taking Mr. Schneider, unfortunately. Yeah, I desperately. In the essence of time, I'm going to read this as written. It says, "A discussion regarding the Pennsylvania Structured Literacy Plan occurred. Currently, Wilson School District has all the components that are outlined in the plan, and I will just say I'm thrilled that our administration has not jumped off the bridge like many other districts have with structured literacy, and I hope we stay the course. Elementary is starting a curriculum writing process, and I'm really excited about this. I know we've had curriculum writing in the past. The way that they're doing it now makes so much more sense. The kindergarten now has a curriculum map, and I love this quote, that it's created a roadmap and a one-stop shop for all standards, assessments, instructional strategies, and resources for our teachers to use in their planning, instruction, and assessment. And that's really what a curriculum map should do, instead of trying to find all the pieces in all different places. Our teachers had some professional learning days on October 10th. That was the BCIU in-service for our related arts. On that day, the elementary had grade level meetings and trauma-informed practices. The secondary is really focusing a lot on assessment, and on that day, they had assessment validity and trauma-informed practices. On the early dismissal on 10/26, the elementary teachers had building team collaboration time, which is always, always welcome. And then the secondary ed folks did more assessment. And that is it for our curriculum committee minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Mrs. Schlossman, Brooks EIT. Thank you. Extracurricular Committee, we will meet next Monday, the 14th, at noon in the admin building. Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of quick notes. The operations team is finishing up their October list and starting on their November list of things to do. They've added some drainage systems at Southern Baseball Field, and we'll be adding diamond techs at both Southern and West as needed to ensure better drainage. They're waiting for some glass to arrive to finish the George Mack press box, which was done in-house. And another thing that was done in-house, the repairs on the stone wall on Grandview are almost finished. So the chlorine acid room renovations are complete and waiting for the final equipment to be installed by Mainline Pools, and they're removing dead trees and starting to pick up leaves and lots of other projects coming down the pike. So thanks to the operations team. The next facilities meeting is December 12th at 4:30.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini.
Thank you. We met earlier today. We discussed 22-23 year-to-date financial summaries. Just an overview of that. Local revenues, the earned income tax revenues appear to be up. However, transfer tax revenues appear to be down at this time compared to last year. We had budgeted for 99 students in charter schools. We are currently running at 25 less than budgeted. Hope to see those numbers continue throughout the school year. Audited 21-22, general fund balance 29.7 million, capital reserve fund balance 11.5 million. Both the child care fund balance and the food services fund balance are healthy, showing that the next 5.5 months of expenses are covered. We heard from Sarah Ginn regarding food services participation. The average lunch has decreased at approximately 334 meals per day compared to last year, and the average breakfast has decreased 456 meals per day. However, that has picked up in October due to the state providing for free breakfast for all who desire to have a breakfast, so those numbers certainly should change when we hear about next month's year-to-date summary. Concerning a number at this point, as of October 31st, we currently have a negative balance of food accounts throughout the district of approximately 13,500. We're going to reach out to families to see what in any way we can assist or communicate better regarding free and reduced lunches for those families that may be in need. We discussed the Fulton Bank request to have verbiage taken off the per capita tax bills to eliminate branch locations as a location for paying those bills. The reason being is because Fulton Bank will now be increasing 90 cents per bill for processing those bills in person, when that is 13,000 transactions annually. That can result in a difference of $15,000 in bank fees from year over year. So we're going to communicate with our taxpayers to utilize the drop box out front of the administration building to pay online, but to avoid going in person to Fulton Banks to pay their per capita bills. The audit process with Herbine is almost finished. There was a riveting conversation about a new GASB process over leasing equipment and how that should be placed on a ledger. I'll spare you the details of that. And then finally, we are in the very early stages of the 23-24 budget preparation. The Finance Committee is going to recommend, and this will be on next month's agenda, the opt-out resolution that would be required prior to January 17, 2023, not to exceed the adjusted Act 1 index for next year. The adjusted Act 1 index for Wilson is currently set at 5%. So essentially, the opt-out resolution will assure to the community that we will not exceed millage increases for the 23-24 budget beyond that 5%. PSERS increase by 0.43%. Real estate assessment appeals have certainly increased over time and has resulted in a loss of revenue to the district. And three areas that are of concern and to keep an eye on in preparation for next year's budget. We have seen that the number of economically disadvantaged students throughout the district has increased 408 over the past 5 years. That the number of special education students at the district has increased 154 students over the past 5 years, and the number of English language learner students has increased 110 over the past 5 years. All of those areas do require a careful way of providing resources to our students. That does add to the strain of a budget, so we are mindful of those numbers increasing year over year. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Legislative, Mr. Martin?
Try to do this again. They're all getting ready for their break. And as I spoke at the last meeting, anything that doesn't get approved by the end of this November gets kicked out of the cycle and has to be resubmitted for approval. So everything that was in play is now out of play. One item that was in play that is kind of disappointing for me, is kind of what we kind of touched on, was the Senate passed a bill 1243 to mandate a half credit course in high school for finance. And part of it, some of the components were, they had to teach about managing credit, learning how to borrow money, interest rates, and for large purposes, home mortgages, impact on your life on a home mortgage, credit scoring, and the importance of credit scoring and paying bills on time, and planning and paying for post-education. So all these were a part of that that was approved by the Senate, but has to go to the House, and it's unlikely the House is going to come back to vote on this. So that means it has to be reintroduced and go through, as you know, a lot of steps. It's got to go through committee, then it has to get out of committee, et cetera. So I was kind of disappointed with that. And that's pretty much for right now until, tomorrow's election, obviously. So get out and do your patriotic duty and vote. Hopefully more will do so. And we'll see what happens at the next legislative session starting in January.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
Everyone who made the 20th Annual Veterans Appreciation Dinner Dance a reality. The event took place last Saturday from 3:30 till 9 p.m. in our high school gymnasium. So we want to thank the JROTC cadets from both Wilson and Muhlenberg for their help in setup and support during the event, to Jeff Simcox and his team for facility management, and to Matt Citrone and his team for media support. This event is truly an honor for our district to host every year, and we are grateful for the opportunity it provides us to help pay tribute to our veterans for their service. It was once again a phenomenal event, very well attended by members of our community. This week, school districts throughout the country are celebrating National School Psychology Week to highlight the important work school psychologists and other educators do to help all students thrive. So we will be recognizing our amazing school psychologists this week through staff email, social media, and our Bulldog Blitz. We are thrilled to recognize this outstanding team for the incredible work they do for our entire school community. We also wanted to let you know that the Grandview Gallery is inviting our community to join them at the opening reception of the Watercolor and Photography exhibit by Patrice Reader Martin and Greg Kaufman on November 19th from 1 to 4 p.m. right here in this room. So as you can see the artwork. The gallery director already started the installation of this outstanding collection of new and exciting works of vibrant watercolor paintings and photography. And from the looks of it, it looks like a number of these items will be for sale. So certainly take some time to check them out. They just do a wonderful job, I believe, with all of these exhibits. Finally, we want to congratulate Wilson senior Zach Konzeman, who achieved honors status on the National Chemistry Olympiad exam. Approximately 16,000 U.S. students sit for the local exam each year, and only 2 students from each school can move on to the national exam. The national exam is a 3-part exam administered to about 1,000 students each April. Honor status means that Zach scored within the top 125 students who took the national exam. This is a huge accomplishment, so we really want to congratulate Zach on this incredible achievement. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Thank you. I just want to follow with some good news from the Education Foundation with regard to the 2022 Bash. The Bash raised over $20,000, so thank you to everyone who attended, bought raffle tickets, and/or supported the auction. There was a winner of the Super Raffle, the house in Florida for a week, and that was Faith Hartman, who's a teacher at Shiloh Hills, which is great to hear. Our next WEF board meeting is Friday, November 18th at 7:30 a.m. in this room. And please look for information announced soon about our spring community fundraising event coming March 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Mr. McCray, Technology Committee.
No report.
Student Outreach, Danny Radash.
Good evening. Congratulations to the boys and girls water polo teams for winning state champions. Congratulations to the field hockey team for winning county champs. Congratulations to the marching band for winning first place at their competition this weekend. And congratulations to girls volleyball for winning the county championship. It was a great few weeks for Wilson Athletics. On Saturday, JROTC hosted the 20th annual Veterans Ball. Over 700 veterans and their families attended, as well as 200 cadets. On October 26th, Minithon hosted a fundraiser at Duncan's Corn Maze, and there were activities and a hayride to a barn where people could pet cows, and they were really cute. On Saturday, November 12th, the Mental Health Council is presenting a pickleball tournament at the high school tennis courts. All proceeds go to the Jed Foundation, a nonprofit that protects emotional health and prevent suicide among the nation's teens and adults. The deadline to sign up is this Wednesday, the 9th. As we saw the amazing performance today, the Wilson Theater Company is presenting the musical Year with Frog and Toad on November 17th, 18th, and 19th, and it tells a tale of friendship and is based on the children's stories published in the 1970s. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moravich, do you have an update? Okay,
No report.
we do have public participation on non-agenda
I'll
items.
try to truncate this a little bit. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on by the board members, even if the student or parent is present because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker to attempt to answer their questions. The board respectfully requests that your comments be directed to the board as a body, as it is the entire board. They'll need to consider information to vote in the future. The time period is 3 minutes, and I'll give a 1-minute warning, and any person making threats or violence may be removed from the meeting and cited by local police. And Board Policy 903 covers this within board docs.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Jeff Janagabo. Some board support for gender reassignment surgery targeted to 4th through 8th grade readers.
So for context, I have these books here that I've either authored, co-authored, or contributed to. Has relevance to my comments. So my goal tonight is to find a level of agreement with one another. Regardless of the entry point into our students' lives, my hope is that we agree that highly sexualized material is simply wrong and shouldn't be put in front of 4th to 8th grade readers and graders. You've all heard the concerns about the book Melissa. I'm here to share my concerns through a different lens. As someone who self-published 3 books, co-authored 2, been featured in a handful more, and just this morning approved another article for Forbes, I know a thing or two about the process of book publishing. So as someone who's worked with these publishers, content editors, and proofreaders who, by the way, at times consternate over a single word, I'm truly dumbfounded as to how this passage from the book Melissa exists. So this is page 141. To set the table for those who haven't read it, this is the middle school brother speaking to George, who is now identifies as a young lady in 4th grade. He says, "No, I found them this weekend. I knew Mom was upset about something, and then I saw the bag sitting on her bed. Dude, I thought you had porn or something in there, so I took a peek, just to find out what kind of stuff my little bro was into. So I figured you were gay, but I didn't think you were like that. Scott ate some food. So, do you want to?" And he made a gesture with 2 fingers of scissors. "Go all the way." George squeezed her legs together. That's Melissa in this book. "Maybe someday," she said. In other words, the big brother was asking his now little sister, would she like to have gender reassignment surgery in 4th grade? Am I to believe that this book was made better with that passage? It's 195 pages long. That was a paragraph or 2. Did that have to be a part of it to convey this message? Did discussing genital reassignment surgery for a 4th grader, who biologically is a boy, now identifying as a 4th grade girl, really add to that story? Is it necessary? Beyond the publisher, who had 0 issue, the National, State, County Library Associations had no questions. The BCIU, we know, had no questions. They rubber stamped the publisher's synopsis. That's a whole lot of people involved in the education of our children who are okay with the idea that 4th grade characters and readers consider genital reassignment surgery for themselves. Let's consider it this way. Suppose a middle school boy was overheard having this same conversation that was in the book. Would an adult who overhears it have a problem with that conversation? I'd think so. So why do we put literature in front of children at this age with that content and context? So I suppose the biggest question is this. If genital reassignment surgery for a 4th grade character in a book and for students to read about it isn't off limits, then what is? So in the interest of transparency and open discussion, I'd like to ask questions of this board. Have you read the book? Do you feel it's appropriate, this content? And 3, do you feel books like this in which sexually explicit scenarios are published should be placed in front of our student body? I'd love to hear your comments. I won't accept your silence on it. Your silence only condemns.
Thank you for your comments. Val Delp, Reading Olympics.
I'll start with a quote by Richard Branson. "To be a good leader, you have to be a great listener." It's very telling that a couple of you came prepared with rebuttals to arguments that were never made in last meeting's public comments. What was asked for was recognition that parental rights were again violated, and then there was again a lack of transparency. You weren't listening, and you completely missed the point. None of us were asking for a book to be removed because the character was transgender, but instead for parents to be informed of the sensitive descriptions in the book. I didn't have time to also read the scene where George gets undressed, gets in the bathtub, and looks at what was bobbing between his legs. If that book was made into a movie and every scene was acted out exactly as described in the book, I wonder if it would even get a PG-13 rating. Nudity is restricted to PG and above depending on the amount, and sexual content is excluded from G-rated films. And yet, it's okay for students under 13 to read about it for a school program. I understand kids will find ways to see inappropriate things on the internet, but it's the parents' role to monitor those things and have those discussions with their kids, not an educator's. Also, thank you for reading a description of all the books on the list. That made it much clearer that there is a social emotional learning agenda with the selection of books included. The analogies of mirrors and sliding doors were great, but why is the focus of most of these books on negative experiences? Where are the books about people doing good in the world? Books about community heroes, extraordinary leaders, entrepreneurs, etc. There's no balance in these choices. Life has lots of struggles, yes, but to teach our kids that that's all there is to focus on, I think that is truly sad. You talk about mental health issues, and yet you don't see how things like this contribute to it. This program is meant to inspire a love of reading, which I think is absolutely wonderful, in a world that is becoming increasingly more digital. So where are the positive, inspirational, adventurous stories that our children would absolutely love? And while I appreciate that you feel each child has a choice and not every child will read every book on each team, how are you going to monitor which students are not supposed to read certain books because of mental health triggers or a parent's concern? Is there a spot on the permission slip for a parent to opt out of a book? And if no one in a group wants to read a book on the list, will that team be at a disadvantage? If these things are considered and parents feel they have no choice but to exclude their child from the program, then are you truly meeting the district's guiding principle of providing an equitable opportunity to develop, deliver, and participate in the board-adopted curriculum, co-curricular, and extracurricular programs? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. Any further discussion from the board? Mrs. Casper?
Thank you, President Cocker. I have to address this issue, and as well, it was brought up earlier by another community member. First, I have to address an issue that was brought up during the last board meeting around this topic, attacking our trans and non-binary youth at Wilson and their supportive parents. First, it's never appropriate to accept one's perspective when it's predicated on hate and an unwillingness to be open to others' perspectives. Words matter, and this has to be overtly rejected. Second, as someone who has taught gender studies, it's important to note that gender is a social construct and therefore can be challenged and transformed in the context of any space or time within our society. It takes great courage and critical thought for our young people to be contemplating gender identity, and it is the perfect time to be doing so in their development as they are coming of age. We have all at some point in our lives contemplated our identities as we engage in different ways with our society. In addition, as educators and as those in supportive positions of education, we need to provide as much support and equip our students with the knowledge and the skills to explore their world in a way that allows them to see themselves as a part of it and not excluded from it. And that includes providing them with the tools to do so, like books and experiences shared with peers. But I'll use the words of one of our very own Wilson students. If you choose not to inform yourself, then I cannot tell you what to do. But in return, I would expect the same level of decent respect shown to myself and my peers. I will not tell you what you can and cannot express if you do not withhold us from expression of our own. And that was written by Caitlin Bonner. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Dr. Kennedy?
I just want to note that the PA Library Association and the BCIU voted unanimously to keep this book on the book list. I find it fascinating that we're so lucky in our community to have so many people that are experts at so many things, but I'm going to put my stock in the librarians. I'd also like to take this opportunity, now that we're back on the subject, to also discuss something that happened at the last meeting. I would like to give this opportunity to Mr. Martin to apologize for his threat to parents and what he would do to them if he saw them in the back, in the back alley or on the street with their child was wearing a dress. And I do want to note that there's such an air of toxic masculinity with that statement, because I wonder if he would do the same thing if he saw a little girl dressed up like like a baseball player or in a truck or in pants.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question.
Oh, it's my turn.
Hold on. One at a time,
Please
please.
do.
And I'm going to invite you to apologize for your statements and for the damage that they may have done to parents and students in this district. I've heard several community comments, about parents' rights, and you have no right to threaten parents and what they choose and not choose to do. And when you say something like, they don't want to meet me in a back alley, that's a threat. And whether you perceive it or not, it doesn't matter. It's what the community perceives. And I haven't had as many comments sent to me about anything as I have those words that you said. And whether, I want you to consider the fact that what you said are hurtful, and what you said are hurtful to a group that is already marginalized. And like Lupe said, words matter, and your words matter, and you're a leader in this community, and making threats is not something that we should do in this community.
Well,
Mr. Martin?
First of all, I'm not sure I said anything about beating somebody up in the back alley, but I stand by what I said. I find it hard to believe, because I believe in child's rights and parents' rights. I can't believe any parent has any sanity would, on a 2-year-old, start dressing their child in the opposite sex clothes because they wanted a girl or a boy. And I would do everything in my means to prevent that from happening. I say that and I stand by that word, because that child has rights that the parents are trying to impose upon. That child has no clue what's going on. I don't know when a child starts understanding that. But a child does not understand at 2 years old that he's going to be dressed as a girl, she's going to be dressed as a boy. That doesn't work with me, and I'll confront any parent on that issue any day, any time, any place. I'll come to your house, I'll come to any place. I don't believe in that. I think it's wrong, and I stand by those words. And also, Brian, thank you for bringing those 3 things up. I appreciate what you said, but once again, being a very liberal person, you took snippets of things, but you didn't filter the whole thing. One of those things that you talked about was the camps, the prison camps that we have for the Japanese. A very, very, very informative person that helped write the equity policy compared our camps to the concentration camps in Germany. That's not acceptable. My dad helped liberate a concentration camp. Comparing those 2 things has nothing to do with reality. And I know what you're trying to get at, and I appreciate that, but you got to have the whole story before you speak. And when you walked away, you snickered. I don't like that. You gave me that face, which directed right toward me. And that's okay. You can confront me. I'm not one of those board members that say, don't call me out. Call me out. Amy just called me out. I'm fine with that. But what I say was what I believe in. And you can like it or you don't have to like it. But parents' rights, children's rights, we forget about them all the time. And I'm sorry, Amy, if the people took that out of context, that, I'm opposed to this type of thing. I'm not opposed to it, but don't put it in front of a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. That's totally wrong. They don't understand, and no parent can tell me that they know that their child wants to be something that they're not at that age. I'm sorry, I don't apologize for that statement.
Okay. Other discussion, Mr. Negrini?
Just briefly, I think it's important to recognize on this very sensitive issue that people feel strongly on both sides of the perspectives of parental rights, of the rights of students and children. Having meaningful discussions about this, having calm discussions about this, having the ability to listen and respectfully disagree is what has been missing in society for some time now. To simply place a label on an individual as being hateful or obstinate or in some way closed-minded simply because they disagree with the other perspective is unfair. It's overly simplistic, and this is a nuanced discussion, and we need to be respectful of those that say this is what I believe in, and we need to be respectful in those that say I don't agree. This is something that is not going away anytime soon, and certainly I think this is only going to continue to ramp up as the months go by, and certainly depending upon what happens tomorrow, locally, statewide, nationally, certainly will continue to do so. So let's, have those discussions, perhaps not necessarily with people that we agree with. It's very easy to be in an echo chamber and listen to people that reinforce what we believe, as opposed to having an opportunity to sit down with people that we don't agree with and try to figure out where they're coming from and their perspectives on things. This is, it's gotten ugly, will continue to get ugly unless we are willing to recognize that in each of us to have those meaningful discussions. And in the end, if we can be mindful of respectful disagreements, we'll be better off as a community on this and many other issues coming forward. Raising children is not easy. Being a parent is not easy. Understanding circumstances that may be different in everyone's household is difficult to judge. But in the end, we need to find a way to communicate our thoughts and concerns in a way that is going to move us forward and not tear us apart. So, just simply because that there are academics that say one thing does not make it, the absolute truth. There are academics on both sides that disagree on this topic and many other topics. So moving forward, as I said, we just need to lower the temperature when it comes to what we say and how we say it, and find ways to perhaps coexist with this and other issues that in some ways our minds may never be changed about. don't mean to, feel like, in some ways I'm pontificating or, levitating above anyone else. I make the same mistakes as everyone else at time to time, let the emotions get the better of me. But, if we're going to solve problems as a community, as a school district, conversation needs to happen and not lecturing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Other comments? Mrs. Casper?
Thank you, President Cocker. I just want to clarify that we're rejecting the ideas. We're rejecting the hateful ideas that get perpetuated. We're not rejecting the people. Mike Martin has every right to be here at the table and be heard. But when words and ideas get perpetuated from wherever the source, and it's hurtful, that has to be rejected. That we can't just allow that to continue. And I think that's important. We're not rejecting people here. We are talking about ideas and hateful words that hurt, and that has to be rejected.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Any other comments?
Yes, I've got other things outside this conversation, but I have other items to discuss, so. All right, so I'm going to read something, which you're going to probably figure out toward the end why I'm reading it, but this is not me speaking now. For over 30 years, I've worked on a business, legal, religious, financial, social, and even intimate level with people practically of every ethnicity in this country. I have interacted with people from highly intelligent to those who are almost completely in the opposite direction or might be considered thugs, trailer parks to racists. I've worked with atheists, Muslims, Christians, and even Satanists, young, old, educated, Asians, Hispanics, Africans, Haitians, Americans, etc. I have interacted with them all. No group is perfect. However, I have to say that black people get offended often quicker and more often than any other group I've ever seen or dealt with. And many may seem to walk around this edge or with a chip on their shoulders, powder kegs are just waiting to explode. I guess one can make the argument that's all this country has put on black people through would explain the damage and angry spirits. It says I overstand this, but I think they meant I understand this. However, what about black people who are not slaves nor victims of police brutality nor direct victims of racism or oppression? What about those who simply got offended and made conscientious choices to work against their own people? Well, I would agree that they're contributing factors. Former President Trump, the police, and embedded racism of this nation are not the sole factors which I've called black on black crime and held ignorance and offense in place. Like it or not, too many black people get offended for petty reasons at other black people and everybody else. In business, for example, it seems like a great many black people cannot separate business from personal, and many others get offended when they are called out for what they did wrong. If you don't believe me, ask a young thug politely to pull up his pants or watch how he looks and responds. Ask a black person to turn down his music and observe the response. Lock the doors at a bank at 4 p.m. and watch reaction to those who come to the door outside at 4:05. Today, our senior citizens who have learned from the parents and gained both wisdom and life experience are afraid to correct young people. Why? Because too many black people get offended and react ignorantly. Too many of our people act primitive, fighting over a parking space, shooting someone with their cell phone, or on their cell phone. What do you impacts your people and perceptions of your people? The African American community needs to grow up to be accountable from within and learn how to accept corrections for the better. This was written by a black gentleman, and it's called thieblackman.com. I think this brings us to some of the things I was going to say. Sometimes we don't want to address issues that we should be addressing. It comes to discipline within our schools. I think sometimes we're afraid to discipline a group because of the recourse or their position, or we might offend them. And I think that brings problems that I know that we've been talking about rowdiness in classrooms, on discipline in classrooms, because we're afraid to take that next step. Whatever that step may be, I think we need to start addressing those issues in a more formidable way versus just trying to accommodate because of the certain situations of their upbringing. And this is partly due in part to, I read a email that went to all the board members, including the superintendent, about a discipline problem that occurred, and I know that the administrators are working on that. But how often have we heard about discipline problems and not really truly address them? And I don't, like I said, there's no magic bullet for this, but we have to start now thinking outside what we have done in the past, try to accommodate everybody's wish or whim. It just doesn't work, and I think it really distracts from the education process. And while this was, I just happened to be, I try to read everything I can. While this gentleman for this magazine, I believe he was sincere in what he wrote, and I do see some of this today, to a degree. I mean, everybody sees it in school, pants falling down, but you're afraid to address those issues. And we shouldn't be afraid to address those issues. That should be something that we all should take a part in. And like I said, experience with the elderly, I shouldn't say elderly, I forget the term they use, but all this is important, and we seem to be trying to make excuses for behaviors. And I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. We've been rewarding kids for good behavior. Where we reward some students that are, let's say, not the most cooperative by saying, if you're good for a week, we'll give you something special. But there's also then, what we do, we talk about equity, but the kids that are good all the time, they get nothing. So I think we're out of sync. I'm not even getting into that subject, but I'm just going to go a couple other things. I'll say that for the next time. But part of the problem with discipline is cell phones. You read the same things I read. I mean, I say the board, not the audience, but the board gets the same updates I get. I believe everybody gets the same thing. It talks about the discipline in cell phones. Most schools are now restricting the use of cell phones and how they disrupt the classroom. So it's something we need to address too. I mean, I know there's a lot of pros and cons to this, but it's obviously distracts from the educational process. And the rating on books. At the last meeting, somebody mentioned, I don't remember the person's name, but rating of books. We have ratings for everything in the world. You read a book, you read a box of Cheerios or a box of, cereal or something. There's warnings all over the place. We put labels on everything. We put labels on video games. We put labels on movies. Why can't we at Wilson say, okay, this makes sense? Why don't we start something? Why don't we be the engine that drives a change? And we can do that. I'm not saying that we're doing anything wrong, but let's put ratings on books. Every parent is busy. They don't know every book. That's what's in every book. And I know, some parents will say, well, I don't know what's on my son's cell phone. That's fine. That's a parent's right. That's also a parent's right. So I'm going to hold the rest for the next meeting. That's it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Martin, I'm going to try very hard to follow Mr. Negrini's suggestion and calmly explain that what you read in the beginning of your comment was so utterly offensive and racist that I think I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Mr. Case left in protest of what you were just reading. You basically equated all of the negative behavior in our schools to our black students. Nope, we don't need comments from the audience, it's okay. And I don't know if there's a gap in awareness of that, but everything that is in, and I don't care if an African-American or a black person wrote that. That's completely, has nothing to do with what the words on the paper that you just read to our entire community as this is live streamed and recorded. So I would like to apologize for our entire board that nothing that came out of Mr. Martin's mouth is representative of the Wilson School District or the feelings of, I'm going to say the rest of the board. If anybody disagrees with that, you may speak up and side with Mr. Martin. But I'm trying very difficultly to explain that that was very hurtful to anybody that possibly was listening. And I will open it up to other comments from the board.
What was the context of that? Why did you even read that?
I probably read 1,000 articles a week.
But why did you bring that to this forum?
Because what I was trying to say was, sometimes we overlook. This article was written in a respectable magazine about the issues that confront everyday people, okay? I don't know where this gentleman's from, where he lives, where he's from, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, the comment about, we're afraid to, hold on. It talks about, you can ask somebody politely to do something, and they overreact. And the point was, we let things happen. I wasn't saying, if you, Steph, you said that I was referring that this was all related to, I wasn't referring to black people. What I was saying, this article was written by a black person. What I was saying was, we overlook things that sometimes we can prevent from happening, and we don't, because we're concerned about offending a person, or a group, or a thing. Okay, that's the intent. What I'm trying to say is, we have discipline in our classrooms that are, depending on, we'll talk about that some other time, but we have issues with discipline in the classroom, and people will say, well, why is this? I mean, it distracts from the other students. Why don't we do something? Why are we afraid? And the point was, you gotta stop being afraid to confront issues that you don't feel comfortable with. And that's what this article was trying to say. That's my belief in what the article was trying to say.
So you're agreeing that when someone wears their pants low, that is offensive, and that you should be calling them out on that? So is that offensive to you, or is?
It doesn't bother me any. But what I'm saying, if somebody is.
You were agreeing with that.
But you're afraid to confront somebody that could be, like I said, when you have a person, whoever they are, it doesn't matter what, it could be white, pink, blue, purple, I don't care what color it is. But we're afraid to address situations because we're afraid of hurting their feelings or doing something that they may not like. We got to get out of this mode because it's impacting education. And like I said, obviously, you don't have to agree or disagree. I just, I feel that our school discipline is starting to unravel. And I know, like I said, we got a communication from, I guess, a week or two ago, I'm not even sure how long ago it was, but we got a communication about a concern. But we just don't got a grasp on it. Okay, that's all.
Mr. Martin, if I may, I hear the term "we" being used, and I'm making an assumption that "we" means the administrative team at the Wilson School District. Is that an accurate interpretation of "we"?
No, we is everybody on this board.
So the board's responsibility, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Maravich, is really to sit and hear, to serve on a committee when and if the administration recommends an expulsion. That's really the extent of discipline and/or setting policies. So outside of that, it really is the administrative team, many of which are here, inclusive of that, I would include Officer Rob Johnson, who's involved in a lot of our conversations. I just, again, trying to break apart what you said, also thinking about the fact that we spent 3 hours together in schools last week, probably visited 15 classrooms ranging from 3rd grade through 8th grade, participated in 2 different lunch periods at Southern Middle School with 300 kids in a class, or in a lunch period, and reflecting on some of these pieces around, how we're afraid to discipline a group that that we know things are happening and we don't address them, that we try to make excuses, that we don't have cell phone procedures in place that limit cell phones. Quite frankly, I don't think those statements are accurate. I don't think they accurately reflect the work our teachers do every day in the classroom. I surely don't believe that they accurately reflect the work that our administrators do in trying to educate children. Are there behaviors? Absolutely. There are 6,400 kids in this school district. There are kids with significant disabilities, profound disabilities that lead to the inability to make decisions and to regulate their emotions and behaviors. That happens every day in our school district. It is exceptionally challenging for our teachers. It's exceptionally challenging for our counselors, our social workers, our administrative team. I hope that through spending more time in our schools and experiencing these conversations that we can shift this narrative around what I believe to be not true. I spend a lot of time in our schools, as do many people in this room, and we're talking about isolated incidents. We're talking about perhaps 2% of what actually happens in our school. The miracles, the joys, the things that we saw today, that's normal. That's what our school system represents. So I have to challenge some of those statements. Again, I respectfully disagree. We do have cell phone procedures in place, comprehensive procedures, some of which were implemented this year with the involvement of kids and our staff. And I just want to challenge, too, that we're afraid to discipline a group. I'm not so sure what that means, but I would be willing to sit down with our team to talk more about that.
Well, okay, I didn't say a group. Did I say a group? If I said a group, I don't remember saying a group, but once again, we can go around in circles on this, and that's not the intent to go around in circles on this. But all of last year, we've heard about discipline issues, disruptive students, and, we have things in place. The cell phone policy was brought up last year, and I didn't see maybe I missed it, a revised policy, but,
Mr. Martin, I would ask you how many cell phones you saw when you were at Southern Middle School.
I wasn't looking.
Okay. I didn't see a phone.
We'll be at the senior high soon. So, anyway, I just wish we'd be more open and, we talk about communications. We only read the good communications. We never read any bad communications. So what's the policy on communications? When a parent sends us, the board, when I say us, the board, and you a correspondence, is that communication or not communication? I don't know. I mean, just like executive committee meetings, we have an executive meeting, we talk more about, everything we talk about isn't just personnel. We talk about other things in executive committee, but we don't tell the public about that.
Do you want me to read the communications I got about you this week? We can put them up on the screen.
Feel free.
Okay.
Did it come
We're going to try and be constructive.
Okay.
And not get ourselves wrapped into it. Mr. Martin, I've reached out to you after the previous meeting about if you, especially with things that have been coming up in relation to the previous book conversation, if you would like to reach out and have any discussion points that you would like to discuss about that topic. I feel like there needs to be some either research ahead of time or thought of the repercussions of the things that are said in this meeting, because we as a group are elected to lead this district. And I think it's very dangerous in coming to the board and reading something that is universally going to be taken as offensive, specifically stating that what I personally got from that is that you are blaming behavior problems in school on Black students, and the reason it continues is because we are afraid to talk to them, to tell them to stop. And as a teacher that had a variety of students, a diverse group of students in my classroom, there isn't a single student that today, if we walk around our buildings, if somebody's doing something incorrectly, A teacher is going to call them on it. It does not matter what that student looks like, what their background is, what their situation is. If a student is doing something incorrectly, a teacher is going to call on it. So I just think that there maybe is a gap in what your perception is and what the reality of our school system may be. And I would recommend respectfully that forethought is put into before coming to the meeting and reading something of that nature.
Okay, let me just, I understand what you're saying. I guess I have an issue here, other than Loopy. All of us sit around here, we're pretty much, I would say, Caucasian. And that's, to me, is we try to put ourselves in a black person's shoes. That's what I was trying to show you. That it's just not, we look at this is not just, something that, I think was just here to incite a riot or something. No, I thought there was meaning to this because sometimes we don't see the other side of it.
I think that this conversation is probably going to end now because it's not going to go anywhere other than down.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, motion approved, meeting adjourned.